Welcome to the Lalulah podcast, real life conversations about modern sexuality and how to live a happy, healthy, turned on life. I'm your host, Laura Allen, a holistic health coach and founder of Lalulah, an online platform offering natural erotica toys as well as the educational tools you need to expand your pleasure in and outside the bedroom. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lalulah podcast. Oh my God, I had the craziest weekend and I actually share about it in the podcast. So you're going to hear about all of the wild escapades very shortly. But this experience inspired me to bring today's guest to you. And her name is Sigourney Bell. She's a Tantra teacher. She's the founder of Wild Grace Dance Performance, which, by the way, if you haven't seen or heard of it, it's super epic and like really juicy. So I highly recommend that you have a little Google of that. She's just a woman of like many talents. I know I say that about everyone, but like Sigourney is particularly amazing. And the words that she writes are so potent and so powerful. And yeah, she's just someone who's had a really big impact on my life. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear this episode because we're really going into, I guess, emotional intelligence. And she gives us some super awesome tools to identify the emotions that we're feeling in our body and just like learn how to kind of run them through and not be scared or not let them like leak out in really destructive and self-sabotaging ways. I personally just got so much out of this episode and my whole body feels relaxed and I feel so much more at peace and at home and like it's okay, even more okay for me to be who I truly am. So I'm really, really excited for you to hear this. And yeah, let's just get straight into it. Hey girl.
Hi. Hello.
Welcome. Thank you so much. As per, we've actually already, to the listeners, we've already done this episode and this is Sigourney Weldon round 2 because I admittedly lost the audio of our first one. Suspect.
That's okay. That's okay.
But I'm feeling good because, you know, all these things happen for a reason and I feel like this conversation that we're about to dive into is going to be fucking juice. So, yeah, we're just going to get straight in. And the first question that I always ask is, what color are you today and why?
Interesting. It's like I automatically went to say the same color as last time. I'm like, hang on a second. No, what are you today? So I'm feeling this like teal green color actually, like this mix between blue and green, which to me is like a really calming, settled color. It's the color of balance. Like I see the ocean, the sea, and like the waves, and yeah, which represents how I'm feeling today as well. So,
I love it. I love it. I love a good teal, and yeah, you are like, and that is a completely different color to last time.
Yes, it is.
It's such a great question because it really does like land into like where people are at in their life. It's a really great thing to ask yourself as well, to the listeners. You know, in the morning when you wake up, you can always do a little check-in and just go, oh, what color am I today? Yes. Okay. Good chat about colors. So, okay. So
just so we're in harmony now, and can I ask you what color you are today?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Gosh, I'm actually a bit of a bluey gray. I'm a bit kind of muggy and foggy and I'm a bit gray, but then there's certain pockets that have more depth and then there are certain pockets that have more of that blue popping through and like more light in there. And I feel like I'm really just kind of navigating out of this color into another one. So I'm in a bit of a murky transitional color at the moment. Yeah. Yeah. But it's okay. You know, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. That was real nice. It's actually interesting because, well, yeah, I wanted to start this by telling you and the listeners a story about the weekend that I've had. And I've just been on a women's retreat and it was wild. And on the Saturday night, we had this kind of like candle fire pit in the middle of the room. And, you know, we did all these like beautiful, like dance witnessing exercises where, you know, you go into little pods of 3 and you take off a layer of clothing that represents something that you want to let go of in your life, whether it be, you know, shame or a feeling or a relationship or something that's like you're holding on to that you don't need anymore. I'm sure you're familiar with this, Sig, but some of our listeners may have never done stuff like this before. And then all of a sudden, you know, we're in a room full of women who are like exposed, raw, naked, vulnerable. Like we've just shed all of these layers emotionally, energetically, like spiritually, you know, and I'm just laughing so much at myself because it's that cliche, typical, like hippie women's retreat thing. 'Cause then we all started like going into this deep dance ritual and we all like sat in a circle around the fire and we were just like growling and hissing and like thrusting into the middle, like in synchronicity together, like thrusting our hips with so much fierceness and power. And like, it just felt like all of these like lionesses just roaring from the very like depths of our like womb and our pussy like into this fire. And oh my gosh, I'm just imagining some of the listeners going, what the actual fuck? And I get it because it sounds so outrageous, but when you're in it, it just feels like so good. And I started to get really curious about that raw and wild and lusty and angry and just like ferocious energy that is really that, you know, that we don't tap into or we don't get to express in our everyday life. Yet when we do, it can feel so just powerful, like intensely powerful. So yeah, and here you are. And I know that this is something that you work with a lot. And I'd really love to hear from you what this whole dark, feminine, like wild woman archetype or energy is all about. Because I feel like it's something that we all kind of have in our own way, yet we shut it down and suppress it and put it away so often.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love it if you could just speak to that some more.
Yeah, I'd love to. And what's coming through for me first and foremost is like the reason it becomes so ferocious and fucking wild and like, rah, like look at me is because it is so shut down in so many women that when we actually do allow ourselves to tap into it finally, it's like there's so much there. There's so much there because our power, our deep power, which is the deep power of, you know, our expression and our emotionality and the feminine and our deep feeling is so shut down in our day-to-day lives for women and men that when we get the opportunity to be in a space where it is actually safe to express all that we are, it's fucking wild. Whereas if, you know, it's like if we like lived in nature and lived according to our seasons and our internal cycles and we lived according to our true feminine nature, then actually it would probably be much more gentle because there wouldn't be this energy within us that was just dying to be heard, seen and felt. So yeah, it's just really interesting because I don't actually think she is as wild as she may come across in some of these spaces sometimes. And of course she's wild. She's nature herself, right? The feminine is nature. So she doesn't give a fuck. She just is the expression of whatever she is in that moment, and because that she doesn't often animate us, because we're often in our heads from day to day, and our bodies get negated, and our emotionality and our expression gets negated, so she gets shut down so often. Whereas if she had that, expression in our day-to-day lives, it probably wouldn't be as chaotic and messy. And not to say that it isn't either. I don't want to define her either, but it's something I notice when I am deeply connected to my own cycles and my creativity and my sexuality and my emotionality and all of those parts of myself, which are connected to my what they would describe as more feminine energies. She often doesn't become so overwhelmed.
Yeah, I love that. And oh gosh, I love how how we're talking about this kind of feminine energy and that wild woman and that kind of ferociousness that can be there. And that can seem a little bit contradicting, because there's also that other side where it's like, oh no, I thought feminine was like soft and beautiful and gentle and graceful and like heavenly and that.
Yeah, totally. And this is the thing, she can't be defined. She is that also.
Yeah.
She is everything. She's all encompassing.
Yeah. She's everything. Yeah. And she's ever changing, ever flowing. And yeah, I love how we're saying it's about kind of finding the channels to access and express that in a healthy way when it comes up, when it needs to erupt, when the volcano needs to erupt, when the storm needs to happen, finding a way to let it happen, and that's healthy and not destructive, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and also sometimes it will be destructive. That's also a part of who she is. In order to create, we need to destroy. We need to destroy what isn't serving us. And so it's actually a constant process of destruction, maintenance, and then creation again, and rebirth and death. And so she can be fucking destructive. And I actually think that is a huge part of her that is shut down, and why, the minute that we shut down our minds with things like alcohol and drugs and stuff like that, then that destructive nature comes out, because that is actually a big part of who we are as well. Is we are destructive. We are everything.
Right. Yeah, totally. Because like alcohol and drugs can really give us that kind of permission slip to go to those places. And then the next day you can go, oh, I was drunk. That's why I behaved in that, outrageous way. Yet it's really just something that we're kind of longing to express daily, or,
Yeah, our shadow will often come out when we suppress our logical minds, and the part of us that normally overrides our full expression. So it's interesting to see how people behave when we shut off the inhibitions, because that's often the part of us that's deeply suppressed. And it is the dark feminine that is the destroyer. And that is what I see very commonly coming out in people with things like alcohol, because that is probably one of the most deeply suppressed parts of yourself. The part of us that doesn't give a fuck, the part of us that wants to, destroy and actually enjoys that as well. There's a lot of shame around that.
Oh, gosh, even my body right now is like, I feel relieved that you've said that, because that is a big part. That is a big part of it, that it's a big part of life, and like having to constantly feel like I need to maintain things, or, be nice and be gentle and be graceful. And like, actually, sometimes I just want to tear the walls down. And It's okay. There's two things that are on top for me right now that I want to speak to. And the first one is I heard this great quote that I want to share that's so relevant. And it's things need to fall apart to fall into place. And that's what you were saying before. It's like allow that destruction, allow that rage so that the dust can settle in a new place that's right. So yeah, that quote only just landed for me fully right now, that you've like given me permission to to own that destructive piece. And then there's another funny story that I'll tell really quickly before we move on. And that's like I've been in this like bit of a like I've been going through some stuff with my partner, and, you know, we've been having all these big conversations and we've been holding space for each other, and it's, you know, we've been talking and loving each other and listening and all that kind of stuff. And it's been very beautiful, and I'm so proud of us, and it's all very mature and calm, and we're working through it. But at the same time, I'm just like, God damn it. Like, what is the point in going through this if I can't have a fucking tantrum? Like, I want to yell. I want to scream. I want to like pack a sad. I want to strut down this. I want to slam the door. I want to throw a plate. I want to like hit something, you know? And I feel like, am I being immature if I do that? Is it, you know, but there's this like deep rage in me, and it's not because he's an asshole and he's done something wrong and I want to tell him to, you know, get fucked. It's just like there's that there, and I just want to like, let it out somehow, you know?
Yeah, I think there's a deep desire within all of us to be fully accepted in all that we are, and to be fully seen and accepted and loved, you know, the entirety of our full expression, which includes that. And it's also a pattern I've been working on lately as well. I've also recently been relating with someone, and it's a very mature relationship, and these parts of me are welcome actually, and it's actually taking some deep repatterning for me to be like, oh, actually this is welcomed. And when I actually allow that expression to come through, it no longer has it no longer rules me. So, and it usually only lasts like a minute, and then I'm like, oh, I'm good now, you know, like I'm safe. Whereas if I didn't allow that to come through, it would probably be leaky and leak out into everything that I did. So I think there's a real beauty in like being able to hold ourselves in everything that comes through. And also I'm noticing a part of myself lately that's like judging that tantrum as like spiritually immature. And I have this way of like, oh, you know, I need to hold myself, and that's like immature basically. And actually the very judgment of that being immature is what perpetuates it. So yeah, I fully relate to you, and I'm going through a similar journey at the moment. And often it's our child too. It's the part of us that just really wants to be seen and heard. Our child energy, and you know, if you look at the way that children move through things, is like they do throw a tantrum, and then they get up and they run and they play, and they're good. And it's like they don't hold on to things like adults do. Whereas we hold on to something, and then it's like, oh, and then we'll start picking at things, or we'll like get judgmental because we haven't allowed the full expression of who we are to move through, and then to release it. It releases it as the entirety of it is felt and seen and acknowledged by us. So yeah, I fully feel you in that.
Resentment can happen too if we're not owning that part of ourselves.
Yeah, and in the end, we've got to give ourselves permission to be that, and to do that regardless of you know, preempting what the reaction of someone else is going to be. And it's like tuning into, is like, am I doing this to seek validation and be loved in this? Or am I doing this because this is really authentic for me as well?
Amazing. So I feel like we've reached this point where we're like, okay, so we've got these things, we've got these emotions that can, you know, really manifest in our body. what are some of the tools that we can use to work with them and do that in a safe way still? I mean, like, let it happen fully, but what does that look like? And, you know, how can we kind of destruct without, you know, kind of literally tearing our life into shreds and sabotaging everything?
Yeah, and like the first thing I feel to say to that is like having a deep connection with that part of ourselves. So actually going internally and being like, okay, I feel and hear you, giving ourselves validation in what we're experiencing, and what are you trying to show me as well? Because often there's something deeper there for us to acknowledge. And it's like often our emotions actually have a message for us as well. There might be something that we're not, there might be something there that we need to acknowledge in ourselves, and the emotion is like the part of us trying to grab our attention, like the screaming child that has a need, right? Like, I'm hungry. It's like, okay, cool. Like, so for me, it's like really having a practice where I'm like a daily check-in practice where I'm actually moving my body and going, okay, like, what am I feeling today? And what do I feel like I need today? I'm really checking in with my needs and then giving those back to myself so that I'm not then having these emotions and these needs come up that I'm needing to seek outside of myself from others. It's like I can give those things back to myself. And that's also not to discredit the like beauty in being able to receive from others as well. Especially if you're someone that, particularly like me, is like got this real, I was running a belief system for many years of that I needed to give everything back to myself, and then that disconnected me from others because I couldn't let other people in to support me in my needs. So there's like a really fine balance. But first and foremost, I think it's always important that we have that really deep connection with the part of us, our child, that has needs from our parent, from our inner parent, and that can, you know, support ourselves in those needs. And then also to be able to run those emotional energies through us, and there's various techniques that you can work with to help the free flow of emotional expression to move through the body. And personally, for me, dance is and sensual dance, like dance which engages our sexual and sensual nature. That is my personal favorite and my daily practice. Yeah.
So so dance is really important, totally, and it's such a great way, or just any kind of like movement exercise, because emotion is just energy in motion, and finding the practical tools that we can use to move it and expel it from our bodies is amazing. And dance is so clearly like a home run, slam dunk jackpot when it comes to doing this type of work. But what is it about sensual dance that makes it so potent and powerful?
Yeah, of course. I'll just, one thing just around, in terms of like expelling emotional energy, sometimes it's really great to contain as well. I'll just speak to that and actually work with the alchemy of that emotion, because emotional energy is really powerful creative energy. So we can actually work with containing emotional energy to actually sublimate, which is a tantric word. It's actually a scientific word which means to turn a solid to a gas. And what that means in the body is we're turning our more dense, heavier emotions, such as the base, the emotions in our base, which is our connection to the earth, and also our sexual center, so our emotional energy, and actually moving those through the body and converting them into spiritual energies. And what that does, that process actually ignites deeper creativity within us, because the energy of our lower centers, or energy centers, which they are also called chakras traditionally, when we move the energy from those lower centers up to our higher centers, such as our third eye and crown, or our pineal and pituitary gland, which are the centers that actually help with enhanced vision and seeing and creativity, then we can actually channel that energy towards creativity and towards higher purpose. And that actually means that the emotions are being put to a higher purpose, and they're being channeled. And so they won't manifest as densely in the body as like, so much rage and grief and all of these like really intense emotional expressions. They actually work towards something more refined. And for me, dance, and particularly sensual dance, is a really powerful practice to work with the practice of sublimation, because what we're doing is we're engaging deep earth energies through sound, like really deep sounds, and through movement and through breath, and also our sexual energy through movement, touch, breath, and sound. And we move those through the body, and we actually start to breathe them up and through the body, and up to the heart, and up to the throat, and up to our crown and our third eye. And these, then we almost become one with the emotion, and also we ignite these different energy centers within us and awaken these different energy centers, so our heart and throat, upper centers, and this actually changes our state of consciousness and ignites creativity. And really one of the ways we can work with activating our sensuality within that is through beautiful, gentle, loving self-touch, and really touching ourselves in a way that feels good, and feeling into, okay, how does the body want to move? Like, what feels pleasurable? How do I want to sound? And really moving with what feels good, as opposed to just automated movement. It's like, okay, moment by moment, I'm going to move in a way that feels really good for my body, and that ignites.
And that's the
pleasure.
practice, right? It's that constant tuning in, being present with what you actually authentically want to express in that moment, which might not sound pretty, and it might not look like you've been on set of the Step Up movie. It can really look quite, I mean, it can look like many things, but it can be quite feral as well, and just allowing that to happen and giving yourself permission.
Totally. Yeah, it's about the feeling first and foremost over how something looks. And that isn't that is the feminine, because the feminine is about feeling, right? It's not about what looks good. It's about what feels authentic in me right now in this moment. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That was really powerful. So say I'm a listener, I'm new to this kind of thing, and I'm experiencing some like quite intense emotions, and I'm really I can feel sort of stuck or blocked in my body. Like, what would be the first thing that you say to that you recommend that they do to start moving that, or to start dealing with that?
Yeah, so I would do a practice with them where I get them to actually somatically connect with their body and start to feel into their body with some gentle breath into the body, with some gentle movement, just awakening the spine and the different parts of the body, the different centers of the body. And I really get them to go into their body and start to develop a connection, a mind-body connection. So taking the mind and the awareness into the body and really feeling what is present and alive for me, and how does this want to feel and move through me? What does it look like? And underneath this, like, what's the core emotions, and what do I need? Like, what are these emotions? Usually when we release emotion and we allow it to run through us, there's usually something there, like a message for us. So I'd be just getting them, to develop that mind-body connection to start with, getting them out of their minds and into their body, and tracing their awareness through the body and actually just feeling. And as the feeling comes up, okay, what's underneath this feeling and what is the consciousness of this feeling. Because when we go into a feeling, we take our consciousness into the feeling. It's usually that the feeling has some kind of meaning. And so when we can develop a connection to that meaning, then we can go, okay, I hear you, I see you, I feel you, and I can give that to you. And sometimes it might just be that there might just be a lot of emotion, and it's just simply about connecting them back to that, the feeling of it, and releasing it. And from that space of releasing it, then having more stillness, because the emotion's not holding so much in the body, and then being able to connect back from that place of stillness to, okay, what do I need now? But there's usually always a consciousness behind the feeling, or some kind of message underneath the emotion.
Oh my God, I'm just obsessed with everything that you're saying right now. So that's what embodiment is you know, we hear the word embodiment everywhere, but is that what it really means? Because, you know, we really, really do live in our heads all day. We're on our phones, on our computers, we're in our life, we're doing. And then, you know, we've just really forgotten those tools to connect to our body and to our feelings. And is that what embodiment means, really?
Yeah, great question, because it was something I was discussing on my teacher training last week, and getting everyone to discuss what they thought embodiment meant to them. And I discussed what I feel embodiment means to me as my personal definition. And for me, I believe that it's when all parts of us are on board. It's all encompassing. It really looks at how can I love all of the parts of who I am, my mind, my body, my soul, my spirit. And it's really having a deep connection to all parts and learning to love those parts as well. So it's like, you know, acknowledging the mind and our intellect is equally as important for embodiment. So if we're entirely in our bodies and we lose our consciousness, then all parts of us are not on board either. So it's like, how can we learn to deeply know ourselves and really integrate all of the parts of who we are into our lives so that we can feel whole and complete. So it's like, okay, what does my soul want? What is my, it's having the connection to the body. It's also having the connection to the intellect and driving our lives forwards from a place of purpose and fueling our intellectual fire. And it's like, okay, and what does my spirit need? Okay, it needs time in nature. So it's really about understanding the different parts of who we are and really loving and supporting those parts and bring ourselves back into wholeness.
Epic. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, okay. Of course, because our minds are a part of our body too.
Yeah, they are one, essentially. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's really epic. There's something about those strong emotions as well that can feel so overwhelming. And I wonder if you can speak to that reaction, let me just think about how I want to phrase this really quickly. So I notice a lot, and I hear a lot of people say, there's this feeling and they sort of don't know how to deal with it, and so they instantly go into their head. And that's when the stories start to happen, because our mind is trying to figure out what this feeling and sensation is. And usually it's a story that is completely not relevant to what's actually happening in the moment. And that's when we can run those, patterns and, whatever childhood trauma of when your mum left you in the cot for 10 extra minutes and so on and so forth. So, do you want to speak to that a little bit more and just kind of maybe just let us, just speak into that whole kind of emotional intelligence and learning how to sit with those feelings and not let our mind run away with everything.
Yeah, cool. For me, in trusting the opinion of the mind, my body has to be relaxed. Like if my body is relaxed, then I can trust what's happening in my mind. If I'm like holding so much tension and defense in my body, then that's going to be mirrored in my mind, and I'm probably not going to trust what's coming up for me. So it's like, okay, I can feel a lot of tension in my body. I'm going to go into my body first. I'm going to actually breathe, move and sound through some of this tension, really go into it and just experience it without trying to read into what it is. And then once I feel relaxed in my being, okay, tune in again, what's there for me? And then most likely I'll get a more accurate answer, because the story is actually not in our mind, it's stored within our body. And so when there's a defense in the body or there's some kind of locking in the body, it's because usually because there's a story. And the way that we release the story is going into the body and really fully feeling it, refeeling that trauma. Okay. And then knowing when it's time to stop feeling. Like if we, are constantly going into it, then it's like, okay, maybe there's some repatterning of the mind to do here, because emotions actually only last 90 seconds. That's a scientific fact. And if it goes beyond that, then it's usually that we've created some kind of story around it. So it's like, okay, fully feeling. Now I'm feeling more relaxed. Okay, what's coming up for me now from that space of not being in defense and not being in contraction.
Okay. Well, this is all just like really amazing information and really valuable resources to, really like start to learn how to work with our emotions in a meaningful way and in a helpful way. So I have a couple of like quick fire questions that I like to do at the end of the episode. And the first one is, how do you cultivate more pleasure in your life?
Yeah, thanks for asking. First and foremost, it's having a pleasure practice, right? It's like, the way to awaken pleasure is through the very act of giving yourself the pleasure that you're seeking. And so I have a daily self-pleasure practice that doesn't always look pleasurable. Sometimes it might be that there's tension down in that space and that I'm actually just breathing with myself and feeling, and it's not actually pleasurable, but I know that, beyond, like when I wake up my feeling, that's where true pleasure comes from anyway, and I can't experience pleasure if I am ignoring an emotion or a feeling there, because that's the pleasure's underneath that. So a daily pleasure practice of having no expectations and just exploring my body with curiosity. Dancing every day is something that I love. And just, as I said before, checking in with myself. It's like, what do I feel like today? Like, what do I feel? What's one thing I would love to give back to myself today? Because it might be different every day. Like yesterday was buying myself flowers and putting them on the altar. One day I might be taking myself out for coffee. But it's really just checking in with, okay, what is the part of me, the deepest part of me really desiring today?
Yeah. I love it. Love it. Next question is, what have you learned about self-love recently?
Good question. Yeah, good question. Need to tune into that now just for a moment. Yeah, so for me, it's I've been doing a lot of travel recently, and it was all for very amazing reasons. Like I was performing at a couple of festivals, which was like, a dream of mine. And whilst I was there, actually, because I was so stressed and had been moving around so much, I actually wasn't able to fully relax into my body and didn't fully enjoy it. So it's like, whilst I was fulfilling this vision, because my body needs weren't met, I wasn't content. And now that I've come back and I've landed in Melbourne, and I've got stability and I've got my foundation sorted, I'm in a room in the house, and I've got more time for slowness, I'm actually feeling much more fulfilled. And even though I'm not doing all the things I love necessarily, but because my body is is feeling more relaxed and I have more slowness in my life just to really be with myself, I'm actually feeling better in myself. So it's like, it doesn't matter what you're doing necessarily. It's like what you're giving back to yourself and how you're doing it. And you can be living your wildest dreams, and if like you're bypassing your body's needs, then you're not necessarily going to feel content. And so like self-love is, it's like, again, back to the embodiment piece of like making sure all of the parts of yourself are supported. My body wasn't supported when I was traveling, so I wasn't content, and I wasn't in a state of self-love actually. So it's not always what it looks like. It's like what feels good, and sometimes that's not in alignment with what the higher vision is and what the most expanded part of yourself wants. But it might be what you need as opposed to what you really desire and what your vision is.
Love it. Epic. Thanks. And then the last question is, what has been the most impactful book that you've read? I know that there's many, but you can only choose one.
Yeah, that's really
I know.
hard.
It's like the most horrible question.
Particularly because I'm actually not good with books. I'm going to be completely honest, is I'll read half a book and even if I love it, I'll probably not finish it.
Okay, what's the most impactful half
so it's
book
probably not a great
that you've ever read?
God. This one's tricky.
It's such a torturous question.
I love women. Yeah, I love women that run with the wolves. For me, she just animates exactly what I feel within myself and within such a beautifully articulated way. I love that book, and so I would have to say that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's all about the feminine and our deepest desires.
I have that book on my bookshelf and I'm yet to pick it up. I know the day will come when it just like, like the light comes in through the window and just like shines on it, and like two eagles like fly above me, and I'll just know that it's time to read it. But yeah, that day just hasn't come yet. So, oh my gosh. Sig, I mean, I'm really grateful. Like this conversation has actually been really beneficial to me personally. So I'm really grateful for that. And I'm sure there's going to be heaps of listeners who are feeling a huge like sigh of relief when listening to this, and can just step even more into themselves. And I'm stoked about it. So thank you so much for coming on the show. To all of the listeners, if you don't follow Sig, then I highly recommend that you do. I'm going to put all of her Instagram handles and, social media stuff in the show notes. But yeah, now that I've heard your process, Sig, of like moving that energy up from the lower regions of your body, like right up into your kind of third eye and your crown, and using that as your creative energy. Like now I really deeply understand how you are able to just like pump out this like truth that you do. And I'm just like constantly seeing these posts from you that are just like so intoxicatingly powerful and like, and just so real. And like, you can't fake it. You can't copy it. It's just beautiful. So I highly recommend to everyone to, get on board with Sigourney. And, thanks, Boo. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you. I love you too. And thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure. Yeah.
Second time a charm. Like this episode is awesome. I'm stoked.
Yeah. Great.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And don't forget to share it with someone who you think could benefit from hearing it too. You can also sign up for Lalulah news and stay up to date with all the juicy content that we only share on email. And I want to take a moment to honor you for following your curiosity and prioritizing your pleasure in this way. And until next time, thank you so much for listening, and I'll be back with another episode soon.